Industrial international complex that is going to make money on selling Iran the intercontinental ballistic missile to deliver to the great Satan and to the son of Satan, so to speak, Israel, according to the way that they think, that will have created a severe need for interceptors. Now Iran can reach us with a nuclear bomb. New York could disappear. Detroit could disappear, which it almost has already. Not so much humor there, folks, but a little bit of fact, and a little bit of sadness. I do hope Detroit comes back. And it will, if this plan that I'll speak about, if America does it. But what happens when the whole world clamors for an interceptor? We got to have something. These missiles are going to be coming on the intercontinental ballistic missiles. So Israel's going to, remember the Patriot missile, folks? Remember the Patriot missile?
Oh, yeah.
Remember the what were they called? The Scud missiles that Saddam Hussein would shoot over there, and the Patriot missiles, God bless them, man, they would come up and they would meet them in the air and they would blow those Patriots up and save Israel. Guess where those are made? There are several different places, but they were made in Ann Arbor. The Raytheon Corporation made the motors for them. So what I'm saying is, that's not the military, that's the complex that supports the military, that makes money on war. You can call me a liberal if you want, I'm not. I'm a Republican, I'm a constitutional Christian conservative who has to be a Republican. But I'll give up that Republican status in a heartbeat if it means saving our military from having to go to places that they shouldn't have been sent. And right now I'm challenging the Republican Party all over the country. And what they did with this Corker agreement, what they have done is absolute treason. Because Iran now can get that intercontinental ballistic missile. And I think these are the people who lobbied Obama for this bill. And he couldn't get it through Senate. That's why he violated. You scared me, Joe. I thought they were coming after me. That's funny. Okay, so the military-industrial complex, the whole world will be clamoring for remedy to that intercontinental ballistic missile. What could the remedy be for a missile that can come across the sea? See the Star Wars thing that Ronald Reagan had Russia convinced that we had? That was a ruse. We didn't have it, but they spent themselves into annihilation trying to keep up with it. The fact is now we have it. We have the technology now. And listen to this, folks. It's such a beautiful plan. It's the Hegelian dialect that Dan talked about, that I've been studying about for 20 years. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. You have the remedy. Create the problem to where they will clamor for the remedy. The remedy, the antithesis, the remedy to those intercontinental ballistic missiles bringing a nuclear missile to the United States is the Star Wars technology that they already have. They have the technology to meet that missile and explode it, but first having neutralized the nuclear weapon. I don't know how it's done. I'm a drywall guy. But it will be a bad explosion, but it won't be a nuclear bomb. We will clamor for that, and what we will do, we will strike up that Federal Reserve, that debt machine. We will say, it doesn't matter, man. Raise that debt ceiling. Donald Trump said he'd do that, by the way. Raise that debt ceiling. We need to buy those missiles. We need to protect the babies, the children. And so the military-industrial complex, which is, folks, and I'm going to say it, the Rothschilds, the multinationals, that's who they are. If you look at the Raytheon Corporation, if you look at the Boeing Corporation, they may have a CEO, but who owns them? See, corporations they're stacked. They are owned by owners. You can have 8, like Pepsi owns Dr. Pepper. Pepsi owns Taco Bell. Pizza Hut. Okay, so corporations have stacked ownerships. So what I'm saying, at the peak of the military-industrial complexes are the Rothschilds, and they have no borders. They are complexes without borders. And until we come to that understanding, that realization that our Tea Party Republicans, the people who we worked for majorities, have been purchased. I don't see any other way because I don't think they're stupid. There could be a way by which they say this was the lesser of two evils and we had to do this, and I couldn't tell you about it, folks. We had to do this. We had to violate, we had to decimate the Constitution. We had to watch it die. We had to watch that Constitution die because the alternative to that was unbelievable what was going to happen to America. Which the only thing that was going to happen is that our dollar was going to collapse. And that we were going to have to be the guardians. The Tea Party has to be the guardians of the new phoenix that rises out of the ashes of that dollar default. And we will do that. And the temporary relief, while that is going to take place, is that 10 circles of 10 that I talk about all the time. And we don't have to establish it. It'll be 10 families within a circle, and there'll be 10 circles who count on each other for bartering. For a co-op situation of survivor. I know back during the Depression, my mom and dad did it. We'll do it again. There's going to be a serious collapse of our currency because we cannot continue to mercenary our military to prop up the petrodollar everywhere we go. This war in Syria is not going to keep this from happening. Iran has got the missile. They got the missile. They got the bomb. They'll get the missile, and we will have the military-industrial complex make tons of money on the remedy. But that doesn't answer the question about where we're headed. We are headed for economic collapse, and our grandchildren will not know the freedoms that this Constitution has provided for us because it has died. And I'm going to say this, and I do need to get to these videos. I made an analogy. I hope I can convey this to where it makes sense. In the Bible, the smallest verse in the Bible was John 11:36. Jesus wept. I hope I can convey this meaning to you, folks. I use the Bible because the Bible's relevant. Do you actually think that Jesus wept because Lazarus was dead? He didn't, because he knew he was going to raise him from the dead. So, why did Jesus weep? Well, the Bible says that when he came and Martha said, had you been here, my brother had not died. Which means he wouldn't have died if you'd have been here. And Jesus says, no. He died for a purpose. I'm translating a little bit here. He died for a purpose, and the purpose is so that I could glorify God. In other words, what he's saying is he eventually raised Lazarus from the dead. So he wasn't crying. He didn't weep because Lazarus was dead. The reason he wept, and this is what's relevant here, folks, to what our Constitution having died. When he saw how Lazarus was loved, when he saw how the Jews of that time were weeping, he groaned in his spirit, and then Jesus wept. Our only hope with the death of this Constitution is that, number one, it is as we believed it was, given by God, and I think so. See, the thing is, it's not God inspired as the Word of God is, but I believe that Constitution was given by God, same as this country was placed between two oceans for the religious liberty that we're having taken away from us. Our only hope is that Jesus would have wept when our Constitution died. And it's been dead for a little while. We've just been in denial. The remedy would be this. If my people who are called by my name would humble themselves. See, because God can revive the Constitution. God can give us that religious liberty. But as long as we will not protect innocent life, as long as we will not come to a Jesus moment in the matter of killing innocents. And yeah, I'm kind of talking about abortion, but I'm kind of talking about where we send our military. For the protection of the U.S. dollar, we have taken the lives of an awful lot of innocent people through war. War is hell. And there is collateral damage. But that man right there, folks, and I hate to remind him, because it's not easy. He's in therapy over this. Because he knew lives were taken. Because he followed orders that we sent him there to do. And we sent him in silence because we were living in that new state, the 51st state of the United States. It's called the state of denial, which allows us to be cowed in comfort We send our military to do things that they should not have to do because we need that dollar protected. We're unwilling to live within our means. We will create debt and we're going to force countries to buy that debt. Prove me wrong. It is what's going on, and it is the reason that the Congress will not be responsive. They will not be responsive to this message, and they will not talk about it because they too are living in denial, or they are treacherous, or they are treasonous. And I think the ones at the top are. They're whores, pimps, and thieves. I said that about all of them, but I will say this. Not all of them are. The ones who know are. They have been to the cremation of care. They have thrown their care. Jesus says, cast your care upon me, for I care for you. But if you care, you can't have a conscience about where you send this military. And you will not have a conscience about aborting these children. We are bringing immigrants into this country to replace the children that we have aborted. These children, it's going to be hundreds of thousands of immigrants. Now, immigrants is the wrong word. These people aren't leaving to come to work to make a better life. They are leaving because they would have died over there. And it's Sunni violence against Shia, Sunni violence against Christians. And you're not getting a lot of Christians over here because they don't make it out. Because you got both Shia and Sunnis killing Christians. It is very sad what's going on today, folks. And I am saddened to have to report to you that our Constitution is dead, but could be revived if this country would give God the prominence that we once did. And it has to be the country. It can't be the government. The government is only a reflection of the people. And if that is true, how bad are we to have a government that we have that would live in such deception and would allow the slaughter of babies, would allow the sale of the slaughtered babies' body parts, and then would create body parts of those babies when they grow up. I'm going to show you a video of a lady that testified before Congress. She was a fetus that escaped the abortion process. She testified today, or yesterday, one of the two. So I'm going to get to these, and then we're going to get to some questions, comments. It's 9:30.
Look back the last 15 years, we can look at mistakes made along the way, and I think we are looking at a mistake being made right now with the Iran deal. The thing about this deal is even putting sanctions on existing terrorists that were actually received sanctions relief in Annex 2 would actually kill the deal. The president knows this, so he's actually urging lawmakers not to introduce any new sanctions against Qasem Soleimani, the Quds Force in RGC. We're hoping he does, or we're hoping they do, because that would actually kill this deal.
I think it's a done deal, Michael. You were closer to this than I am, but here's what I think happened. I think that somehow the agreement that Howard would go through Congress was botched, that it would take upwards of a 2/3 vote against it to even threaten overriding a presidential veto. That's kind of weird for what effectively amounts to a foreign treaty, but it wasn't defined as such. That added insult to injury, these botched votes in the House, the missed cloture vote in the Senate. I'm getting in the weeds here, but to make the point that maybe the anger should be directed at the Republican leadership that first agreed to this framework to get this through, and then botched the rollout. What do you think?
Well, we met with Senator Corker, and we expressed the same thoughts you just laid out. It's unfortunate that the American people, we were able to bring the majority of the American people along with us, the majority of the Senate, the majority of Congress, yet, like you said, we still lost this vote, this procedural vote, because we weren't able to get to this magic 61 number, so it's very frustrating.
But Michael,
the key thing there, and I'll get to the other video, I don't want to take too much time on the videos. Number one, he said what I've been saying, that it should have been in the Senate. Number two, this fellow had said that it's unfortunate that we had the majority of the people, and the majority, simple majority of the House and the Senate, against it. It's unfortunate that that wasn't enough. Why is it unfortunate? Why did it only take they turned the Constitution on its head. It would have taken 67 votes in both houses to block this the way that they set this up. And even Vic Cavuto said, we're getting in the weeds a little bit here, and yeah, it's hard to explain. That's exactly where they wanted it. It's hard for people like me to go across the country and explain this to folks. They would rather just willingly suspend their disbelief and continue to support their candidates who are violating the Constitution. And I'm not willing to do that. It takes 2/3 majority now to stop it. It only, in both houses, it would have only taken 2/3 in the Senate to not give advice and consent. Okay, just give me another minute.
That Planned Parenthood's 2014 fiscal report lists as being completed that year. Based on these numbers, 897 children will lose their lives to an abortion completed by Planned Parenthood each and every day. Why do I find this horrific? Because I actually have a lot in common with them. I was meant to be one of them. I should have been just another statistic, but by the grace of God, I am more than a statistic. I come here to you today as a wife, a mother, a daughter, a sister, a master's level prepared social worker, and yes, as an abortion survivor. From a botched abortion to the dreaded complication, a child who lives, I've been called just about everything that you can imagine. But if you want to turn your attention up to the screen, as you can see in my medical records from 1977, kind of right there in the middle, saline infusion for an abortion was done, but was unsuccessful. And at other times throughout my medical records, you will read statements like, the complication of my birth mother's pregnancy was a saline infusion abortion. You could certainly say that saline infusion complicated the pregnancy. It has taken years to unravel the secrets surrounding my survival, to have contact with my biological family, and even medical professionals that cared for me. And although there are still unanswered questions, what I do know is that my life was intended to be ended by that abortion. And even after I survived, my life was in jeopardy. You wouldn't know it by looking at me today, but in August of 1977, I also survived a saline infusion abortion. And as Gianna shared, that saline infusion abortion involves injecting a toxic salt solution into the amniotic fluid surrounding the preborn child. The intent of that toxic salt solution is to scald the child to death from the outside in. For days I soaked in that toxic salt solution, and on the 5th day of the procedure, my biological mother, who was a 19-year-old college student, delivered me after her labor was induced. I should have been delivered dead that day as a successful abortion. In 2013, I learned through contact with my biological mother's family that not only was this abortion forced upon her against her will at the age of 19, but also that it was my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, a nurse, who delivered me in this final step of the abortion procedure at St. Luke's Hospital in Sioux City, Iowa. Unfortunately, I also learned that when my grandmother realized that the abortion had not succeeded in ending my life, she demanded that I be left to die. I may never know how exactly 2 nurses who were on staff that day found out about me, but what I do know is that their willingness to fight for medical care to be provided to me ultimately sustained my life. And I know where children like me were left to die at St. Luke's Hospital. I met a nurse there who delivered a child much like me in 1976. She delivered a little boy after a failed saline infusion abortion. But she followed her superior's orders, and she placed him there in a utility closet in a bucket of formaldehyde to be picked up later as medical waste after he was left there to die alone. A bucket of formaldehyde in a utility closet was meant to be my fate after I survived that abortion attempt. I weighed a little less than 3 pounds when I survived. I suffered from jaundice, severe respiratory problems, and seizures for an extended period of time. And one of the first notations in my medical records by a doctor after I survived is that I looked like I was about 31 weeks gestational age when I was delivered. Despite the miracle of my survival, the doctor's prognosis for my life was very poor initially. My adoptive parents were told that I would suffer from multiple disabilities throughout my life. Yet here I am today, perfectly healthy. Yet I know it isn't just how abortion ends the life of children like me that isn't talked about in today's world. It's also not discussed what happens to children like me who live. I can tell you we are your friend, your neighbor, your coworker, and you would likely never guess by passing us on the street that we survived what we did. In my work as a founder of the Abortion Survivors Network, I have had contact with 203 of these other survivors. Letters from some of those survivors have been submitted to this committee. I'm here today to share my story to not only highlight the horror of abortion taking place at Planned Parenthood, but to give a voice to other survivors like me, and most importantly, to give a name, a face, and a voice to the hundreds of thousands of children who will have their lives ended by Planned Parenthood this year alone. As you consider the horrors of what happens at Planned Parenthood each day, I would urge you to remember my story and Gianna's too. We may not have survived abortions at Planned Parenthood, but the expectation for our lives to be ended by abortion are the very same as those who do lose their lives there. And I have long believed that if my birth mother's abortion would have taken place at a Planned Parenthood, I would not be here today. Completing over 300,000 abortions a year provides them with the experience to make sure that failures like me don't exist. As a fellow American and as a fellow human being, I deserve the same right to life, the same equal protection under the law as each and every one of you. Yet we live in a time where not only do such protections not exist, but my own tax dollars and yours go to fund an organization that has perfected the very thing that was meant to end my life. And this must end.
I'm going to bring this.
Jobless claims coming in line.
Folks, if I wanted to end the caucus, and we're not going to end it with this because we got more to do. How can God weep over the loss of the Constitution when the people that it once protected will allow such a thing to continue? Maybe in our ignorance, we didn't realize it. You see, because that was back in 1970. It could have been that maybe one of my children, who I wouldn't have ever aborted, or had aborted, my wife either, would have needed a heart. Maybe medically, they were born with a condition by which maybe even Dr. Ben Carson could have been the surgeon that could have, and he wouldn't have, but used the body parts of that aborted child because they didn't have the protections. And they could have separated the useful parts and sold them. What if today someone wakes up one day and they realize that their only relevance, their existence, is due to the fact that a life was taken and body parts were sold, and now they live because of that? How can a just God weep over a constitution that has died with a people who will not come to understand the value of life, if it's on the battlefield or if it's in the hospital? Life is life. So if this country will humble itself and pray, the people in this country, He will hear it, and He will heal our land or revive our Constitution. Because I firmly believe, folks, that Constitution was the insulation that God gave us between tyranny so that we could, in fact, have the religious liberty. And I don't like the word liberty, because before government, I have rights. Liberty is permission given. Before God, I ask for liberty. But before government, I don't want liberty. I want to proclaim my rights. And I want to proclaim that any one of those legislatures who will not defund Planned Parenthood needs to stop getting elected and reelected. And they need to be clear about this, because we are guilty when we continue to elect those who will do this deceit of words. They're good at bringing words together that don't really say what they're saying. Yeah, we're guilty of killing those babies if we continue to vote for it in Congress and we continue to allow these tax dollars to fund it. Someday we need to have a constitutional amendment that defines when life begins. And I don't think we'll ever get it done because there's too much industry involved. But we need to stop electing people and hold their feet to the fire, the ones that do get elected. That was a hard video to watch right there. How many of those folks, like her, aren't with us right now? Maybe they were the Einstein. Maybe they were the president that could have brought remedy to this. Maybe they were the Secretary of State that wouldn't have had a private service. But they didn't get a chance because we willingly suspend our disbelief. Because we will sit and say, the voting electorate, I don't mean the Will Run Tea Party caucus, and I don't mean Tea Party in general, but the voting electorate will willingly suspend their disbelief, and that's why I have a little dinner bet with a fellow that Hillary's going to get the nomination. By all the rules, she shouldn't. By every rule in the electoral book, she should not get the nomination. But I say the Democrats will willingly suspend their disbelief in order to have that shot at largesse in government, in order to have those social programs that they live on. Folks, it is unbelievable how many immigrants right now live on the social programs. And we are shipping Donald Trump's right about just about everything he's saying. I just don't like the way he's saying it. And you know what? Yeah, I'm going to tell you this. If he's the nominee, I'm going to vote for him. And I'm not going to get involved in disclaiming somebody who supports a candidate that I don't support. The only reason, folks, that I talk about supporting Carly Fiorina, and there are some things that she's wrong about that clerk down in Kentucky. She shouldn't have gone there. She's wrong about that. That clerk's name is going to be on those certificates even if she allows somebody else to do it. But the reason I support Carly Fiorina over the other ones is I honestly believe she's the only one that can keep this process out of that 12th Amendment that I talked about earlier. Because her going against Hillary, that is not going to go into the 12th Amendment, at least I think. I think she'd choose Hillary Clinton up. And the more she attacks Hillary, the more I love her.
But look at that face.
But look at that face. But next to Hillary, she looks good. Oh, and by the way, here's something that I like, and I hope Donald Trump does this. Didn't Hillary challenge him to a debate? This is an unorthodox electoral season. There has never been a time when a pre-nominated candidate would accept a debate from the other side of a pre-nominated candidate. And I would love, right now, I would pay my grandchildren's salary for raking the earth, whatever. I would pay money to see that debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. I would love to hear him say, "Look at that face." That would be a good one. It might happen. I hope it does. And like I say, folks, I don't criticize you. If you want to support Donald Trump, I'm not going to criticize you. I'm just going to say that I don't believe in political epiphanies like that. Now, what we're going to do right now, we're going to take this, Mike's going to shut down that video, and he's going to take, or you can maybe still do it if somebody else wants to take the mic around. Bill, you want to do it? Testing 1, 2. So I want you to ask questions, and I want a lot of questions. We can go home. That's okay. Going home is good. So go ahead, Tim.
On August 11th, China deflated their currency, and then on August 12th, that port city of Xinjiang was devastated, and China blamed the U.S. Pentagon. This was BBC and all other areas of the world that was blocked out of our news agencies. They said they called it the Rod of God kinetic energy space weapon. Is there any truth to that?
You know, I can't verify the truth of it. I can only tell you that, yes, I believe it's so. And they devalued their currency. They didn't debase it. A devalued Chinese currency hurts the U.S. currency. So that's what Mitt Romney was talking about when he was saying. But yeah, to answer your question, there was 2 explosions in ports. There was another one not more than a couple of weeks back. Yeah, and I do believe it was retaliatory. I do believe it. Can't prove it.
Does that have something to do with
You have to have the
China?
microphone.
Oh. Does that have anything to do with China off the Alaskan coast with their navy?
You know, I didn't know that. I knew Russia was messing around. I didn't know China was off the Alaskan coast with the navy. I don't know. To answer that question.
It was off the Alaska coastline
China was.
last week.
Well, the South China Sea, they're claiming as their international waters, and they're telling America that you can't come here. Oh, by the way, I heard Obama. Here's a question back here. I heard Obama today. This was absolutely beautiful. Recalling the conversation that he had with Putin, because Russia now is in Syria. You know, you understand this? Do you know this? Big time, big presence. And Obama said, "Well, you know, I had a talk with Putin, and I told him that would not be a good thing for him to do." And I was so much thinking about that red line. Why would he even mention that? Okay, go ahead.
Comment on something concerning Carly Fiorina.
Yeah.
I learned something just from Mark Levin's talk show 5 years ago when she was running in a Republican primary as a Senate candidate against Barbara Boxer. Well, she was supposedly a moderate. Mark Levin was rooting for the other person, and not her in that primary.
Well, I don't know why. Right now, if these people who are believing Donald Trump and believing what he's saying, you at least got to give that same courtesy to what Carly Fiorina is saying. I believe she hasn't said any. I might find out. So, you know, she was the chairman of Lucent Technologies, and I do not like Lucent Technologies. The name is a derivative of Lucifer. It has as its emblem. It has the snake chasing its own tail, and in esoteric language, that's a very bad image. That's a Luciferian image. Whenever you see any icon of a snake chasing its own tail, or the broken circle, where that circle is not continued. Yeah, I have some questions about her background and why she was there, but I'm only saying that I don't support her because I think she's the absolute best person for the job. Because the people who have been the best persons for the job haven't been that. I just think that she can keep us out of the 12th Amendment. The only reason. That's why I support her. So go ahead.
So on that, you know, we don't,